Well, hello again. Welcome to Tuppy Diggers and Just Stories. Sharon and I would like to start out with Chapter 12, entitled Cherries, Jubilee. Let's get right to it, boys and squirrels. John Grainer was a character. Devon, Alberta, had its share of personalities. For a town of a few thousand people, the number seemed out of proportion. Perhaps the fact Edmonton was 30 miles away meant those that lived in this periphery town were already outsiders. John fit the category. Same with his old man. John, 16, could legally drive. Jealous was I. Having started grade 1 at the age of 5, I was perennially younger than my classmates, a source of aggravation, as my greatest yearning in the spring of 1974 was to hurry up and turn 16. Driver's license, car, freedom. October couldn't come quick enough. On the back of John's 1962 Honda, we drove anywhere two wheels could go. Beastly black motorbike had the utilitarian sound of a proper farm implement. Low, guttural, and somewhat tinny. Never failed. Why would it? Old man Grainer was a mechanic by trade, and some of that talent rubbed off on his son. A good day included a visit to the temple. Shrine in the Grainer backyard. Hallowed ground where John's old man plied his trade. Humble and nondescript from the outside, one merely had to step inside the large two-car garage to be transformed. Walls were shelved from ceiling to floor with rickety boards that sagged under the weight of a lifetime of solving people's mechanical woes.
Aww.
Hefty cans of nuts and bolts, metric and English, sat teak to jowl with carburetors in various stages of striptease. To fondle one proved sublime. Butterfly valves pivoting in Bernoulli tubes with machined precision returned serious satisfaction to my teenaged eyes. Gears and valves, pistons and pins, chains and sprockets, clutches and throwout bearings, rad caps and thermostats, hoses and belts, tie rods and kingpins, points and condensers, plugs and wires. The palace had no end nor beginning. Gamut of all things mechanical hung on the walls. Most beautiful of all, nostrils received a warm welcome. Uniform layer of dust, grime, and worked-in petroleum/grease provided icing on the cake of contentment, filled the place with an odor of worn comfort. At the business end of things sat old man Grainer's workbench. Substantial posts supported a sturdy wood top that had edges void of their original crispness. Years of dragging mechanical hunks across its surface had given it an oil-soaked character that would have kept it burning for days, if not weeks.
Oh my.
Stool and vise completed the ensemble. Tools everywhere. Wrenches, sockets, mallets, and cheater bars, underbenches leaning in corners and overflowing from toolboxes. Grainer's garage reeked of manliness. Heaven. Mr. Grainer, to my 15-year-old eyes, was an old man, and like his boy, wore glasses. That's where the similarities ended. Old man was grizzled, a veteran of World War II. He had seen things, and it showed. Blue-collar uniform was gently frayed from head to toe. Dark hair slicked back 1940s style. Wrinkled face and slightly bent back told of many years' service at his altar in the backyard. Hands. A real mechanic had paws of calluses and knuckles of scarred tissue. He would never deign to wear gloves, no matter how greasy or dirty the task. Man of few words. Rare times we met, he was elbow deep under the hood of some foreign vehicle I had never heard of. Patient and methodical, never moving fast or with wasted energy, a calming influence. Words formed the same way in his mouth. When asked, he took a second or three before responding. Answers cropped. Query was made of the business of being a mechanic. It's just a matter of applied logic. John and I had a mission. find a car for Monty. Winter had lost its grip on this part of Alberta, and spring was into its spring. A young man's heart had turned to love of cars.
It still exists today.
True that. We grilled the old man. Know anyone in town that wants to sell an old car? Seconds later, he offered, "Might check with Mr. Brooks." Being relatively new to these parts, I wasn't in the social loop. John gave me a nod that said, "We'll check out the Brooks lead tomorrow and see if there's anything to it." I nodded back. Cool. Next day of school, like most before, dragged on for an eternity. Staring out the window, I daydreamed of driving my own car, twisting ignition key and bringing its cast iron V8 to life. Damn straight, wouldn't catch me in a little foreign job where pistons were lacking and lined up in a row. A man needs a V of at least 8 pistons. Anything less, he wouldn't be respected. Not funny.
Yes, that's funny.
1970s American cars and trucks still ruled the road. Industry giants were the big three: Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler. For decades, they dominated North America with their products. Some say the 1930s was the best era of design and innovation. Others swear the 1950s was the zenith. For me, and billions of others, it was the horsepower wars of the 1960s that ignited a flame of excitement. And why not? Wide array of muscle cars was mind-boggling. Camaro, Mustang, Cougar, Javelin, 442, Hemi, Cuda, Firebird, Coronet, Daytona Superbird, Roadrunner, the Judge, and the Mac Daddy of them all, the god-awful, take-no-prisoners, ground-pounding king of the beasts, the fire-breathing 427 Cobra. Carroll Shelby's bastard child ruled from on high. We were not worthy. Perhaps the gods were angered, as the 1970s presented a different story. Seems the unbridled exuberance of putting that much horsepower in the hands of the general public became a little unwieldy. Toes were stepped on, noses bent out of shape. A burgeoning bevy of vote-casting, bleeding-hearted liberals started to make their voices heard. Result? A safety. Seat belts and impact-absorbing bumpers, smog, choked, detuned, wimped-out V8s, and an emphasis on smooth ride and creature comforts, all wrapped in sheet metal that caused one to shudder in horror. Speed freaks lost faith in the big three in record numbers. Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler had lost it. They had grown fat and complacent on their previous triumphs and were drunk on their bottomless bank balances and sense of invincibility. There was import noise on the horizon, big noise, and it was coming. Status quo brushed off the overseas upstarts with an arrogant wave of a backhand. "Monty, stop staring out the window and get your eyes on the blackboard." Right, reality. 3:30 finally arrived. John kicked down on the Honda's foot starter, started instantly. I hopped behind John on the gently throbbing tractor of a motorbike. Moments later, we were in front of the Brooks residence. On the street, parked next to the neatly trimmed lawn of the modest Brooks house, sat a monster. One of the biggest examples of North American excess Detroit had ever churned out. Two-toned, turquoise and white, chrome, and more chrome. It was clean, shiny, and as unblemished as the grass we stood on to admire it. Huge, cavernous. A wise man once described the look of a four-door 1958 Oldsmobile as having been designed by one group of engineers from the front and another from the rear. They met somewhere in the middle as the orgy of excess tapered off. Indeed. Gleaming bits were everywhere. Electroplated spears, spars, and wraparound trim glistened in the afternoon sun. Huge bumpers hung off both ends and anchored the work of art. Assisting each bumper with glandular appeal were two huge titties, complete with hard black nipples. We boys were smitten.
Oh my goodness. I've never looked at a car like that.
You haven't seen a 58 Oldsmobile, my dear. Gazed through the windows. We drank in the dash and interior controls. True to its 1950s birthright, this gal paid homage to the space race and put you in the middle of it. Command Central placed the driver behind a huge steering wheel that helped carve your way through the cosmos. Cockpit levers, dials, and buttons made sure you, the captain of this Rocket 88, would land safely every time. Knock on the front door. Mr. Brooks responded. Quintessential grandfather. Paunch of ample proportion. Hair gray and combed back. Generous forehead. Not the genial type. Gruff. Didn't smile. Just the facts. John introduced himself and explained his lineage. Mr. B nodded with approval. My name was made known, shook hands with the man. Niceties aside, John broached the subject. Have you ever given any thought to selling the Oldsmobile? Brooks tilted his head to the side and thought for a moment. You know, it doesn't run, he said matter-of-factly. John indicated that wasn't an issue. Next query. Would you like us to take it off your hands? Brooks tilted his head in the same lazy fashion and rejoined the conversation. Don't suppose it's doing any good just sitting there. As the odd man in the negotiation between Devonian acquaintances, I was anxious to see a resolution. The fact it didn't run was moot. I would gladly cut the floor out and run it around like Fred Flintstone.
Oh.
My love for this gargantuan automobile had grown firm in the last 11 minutes. Visualizing making a gentleman's boudoir in the trunk, sporting a bouffant silk ascot, crushed velvet smoking jacket, and welcoming passers-by with a cloud of butterscotch smoke from my alabaster pipe. One more tilt of Brooks' melon as he pondered. Then, how about $200? Just about jumped out of my lightly soiled teenage ginch. Temptation to leap onto the old man's head, neck, and shoulders in a loving embrace threatened to overtake my adult sensibilities. Could not believe my ears. I packed that scratch in my back pocket. $200? I was prepared to pay $1 million. Hell, I would have killed all his neighbors if he asked. Where do I sign? Was going berserker on the inside. Though I was young and naive, somehow I knew to quell my excitement and not kiss Mr. Brooks fully on the lips. John looked at me, tilted my head slightly, paused, and offered a completely stifled, $200? Yeah, okay. Handshakes all around. Mr. Brooks handed the keys to John to retrieve the registration from the glove box. New to all this, I followed everyone's lead. 3 of us went to the kitchen table where the registration was signed over to me and a bill of sale written on a scrap of paper. 200 Canadian dollars sprung from my wallet. Another round of handshakes. Junior mechanic and I went to the curb and surveyed the love child. Open doors, hood, and trunk. Brooks had owned it since new and kept it as neat as a pin.
Nice.
Don't think there were any junior Brooks or pets. Back seat was perfect. Headliner, ditto. Tried the key in the ignition. Engine turned a slow revolution and quit. Dead battery. With a pair of old pliers from the glove box, John and I managed to free the heavy battery from its corner of the engine bay. Held the lead acid lump next to my belly as we hopped the Honda and made a beeline for Grainer's garage. My bliss? Boundless. First car. Didn't run, didn't care. How tough could it be? John connected the battery to the huge charger in the Holy Palace as Mr. Grainer quietly contemplated the underhood world of an old Mercedes. Peanut butter sandwiches were constructed in the kitchen. Wolfed and washed down with milk, we recharged with calories. Battery needed an hour. Little toolkit filled with essentials and a gallon of gas were readied. I balanced our goods as we biked back to the Oldsmobile. John knew his way around cars. Battery installed, air cleaner off. I sat at Command Central behind the big steering wheel, awaiting orders. "Turn it over once. Hold it," John announced. "It's got spark." John poured a tiny amount of gas down the carburetor. "Try again." Engine caught and fired immediately. Ran for a few seconds, then quit. To obtain a closer look at what was happening, John climbed into the engine bay and peered down the carb. "Fill the tin can half full with gas and hand it to me." Did as instructed. Mr. Brooks stood in his living room, watched the proceedings from his picture window, immovable as a statue, emotionless. John opened carburetor butterflies and poured fuel down its throat. "Think I see the problem." Fuel leaked from the bottom of the carburetor and onto the back of the intake manifold. Not good. Gasket shot. John clambered out and put on his pensive face. After a moment of thought, as I fretted about a tow bill that would exceed the price of the car, no doubt they charged by the pound, John piped up, "Let's try something." Under the hawk-eyed gaze of Old Man Brooks, we marched into his backyard. John looked through his garbage. Didn't take long for a eureka. This should work. Kellogg's cornflakes box was held in John's skilled hands. Ripped the front half off. On the way back to the Rocket 88, John opined the cereal box was probably better gasket material than the original equipment supplied by Oldsmobile in 1958. Who was I to argue? Back to business. Carburetor had an inline fuel filter with little rubber hoses that allowed me to simply hold the carb out of the way after John had it unbolted. Master went to work. Gasket material, was laid on the opening where the carb sat. Using his little ball peen hammer, John gently tapped around the inside and outside parameters of the sturdy cast iron intake manifold until a new gasket shape was traced. Peeled away what shouldn't be there, and a new gasket was ready for service. Bolt her together. John primed the carb with a bit of gas. "Try it." I turned the key and was excited as the large land yacht started and idled like muffled silk. Kept running. John looked things over and said, "Should be good."
Wow.
Air filter bolted back on and hood shut. We said our goodbyes, thanked John profusely for his expertise, wouldn't take a dime, strapped tools to his Honda, and was gone. Positioned at the wheel, I made all the adjustments, mirrors, seat, attitude, familiarized myself with the myriad of knobs and levers, foot on brake, slid the selector into drive, and nervously felt it engage. 2.5 hours after meeting Mr. Brooks, I pulled slowly from the curb. He looked from the picture window as I waved. Couldn't gauge his emotion. No driver's license, no insurance, no plate on the back.
Oh, you bad boy.
No worry in the world. A 15-and-a-half-year-old happy astronaut launched into the space age. Driveway at our acreage, 7 miles from Devon, framed by the white wall of our modest house and bordered by stately pine trees, welcomed the two-toned Oldsmobile. Looked majestic, its beauty sublime. Was tempted to strip naked and ply myself on its pure white roof just to be one with it. That would be wrong, right?
Yes, right? Very wrong.
Damn it. 5 long months till I could obtain my driver's license. Forbidden from driving, my first love, time dragged. School was finally out for summer, and every chance I could steal my own car for a joyride, I did. Roared up and down the back roads, windows down, waved to anyone I saw, pretended I was Fidel Castro, doing his subjects a grand favor with the humble gesture of a wave.
I can just see you.
Parked back in its place of honor next to the white wall of the house, I swished the sandy drive over the pine bough, lest my fresh tire tracks be detected by one of the parental overlords. July. Cousin from Kelowna arrived for a visit. 2 huge boxes of Bing cherries from Uncle Pat's orchard were offered as a generous gift. We ate those succulent offerings with reckless abandon. Following days had 4 brothers comparing exhausted effluent with amazed eyes as colors and texture seemed to defy explanation against the white backdrop of wet porcelain. Is it possible to look like a Bing? We began to believe it was. Juicy orbs soon lost their luster, and stray thoughts turned to our orchard-owning uncle's real intent. Could visualize him grinning, contentedly blowing cigar smoke while muttering something about little buggers. Passé cherries cried out to be put to good use. Convert to juice? Make pies? Freeze for future consideration? Hell no. With such a rich source of ammo, we just needed a target that could bring the best of what half-rotten cherries had to offer.
Oh no.
Let us fling the Bing. Younger brother Trevor, aka T-Bone, for his ability to stretch the bounds of believability by continually being a bonehead, and I stood outside with a plastic pail of rotting ammo. Flung them at pine tree trunks and squirrels. T-Bone turned and fired one at the virginal white side of the house. Typical of the bone-headed extremes he routinely adopted. Dark crimson juice oozed dramatically down the siding. Most delightful.
Your parents are gonna kill you.
Being Trevor's older brother by 11 months and allegedly more responsible sibling, I was joyously caught up in the mayhem. Couple dozen of the juicy red balls were dramatically oozing down the wall in Jackson Pollock splendor. When our 5-year-old neighbor wandered over, he stood there for a few minutes watching, then asked, "What you doing?" "Throwing cherries at the house," I replied. Our innocent neighbor seemed satisfied with the entire scenario and waddled home after observing a dozen more cherries besmirch the white wall. When contents of the bucket had made their mark and we finished complimenting each other on our dripping artwork, it was time for cleanup. "Let's hose her down." Generous spray of water knocked hunks off and left a nice pile of debris for the rake. There is valid reasoning why cherry juice was used by pioneering women as a natural lipstick. Staining power is tenacious.
Oh, yes, it is.
A Bing flinger will have to wash his or her hands numerous times to rid oneself of the fruity stigmata. Despite valiant efforts, our white wall wasn't willing to give up the final 5% of vermilion shadings. It could not be undone. You know, if you don't look directly at it, you'll never notice it.
Oh my goodness. Try to convince yourselves of this. Oh yes.
Trevor had a point. If you don't look at Mount Everest, you'll never see that either. Who could possibly want to linger and look at a wall? I agreed in a naive attempt to satisfy myself that parents wouldn't note the remains of our temporary insanity. Soap bubbles and dead cherries milled about at the base of our canvas as we dealt with the post-traumatic stress of what imaginative torture parents could come up with should our antics make it to their knowledge. My voice tried to convince both of us that a plain white wall, close to 20 feet high, wouldn't draw the eye to its shady past. This is what we take for granted: walls. No one will notice.
Oh, sure.
It was set. Don't fret. Deal with it like most teenage problems. Ignore it and hope it goes away. 2 days of normalcy. No one noticed our act of lunacy. Time. That's all we needed, and maybe some plausible deniability. On the third day, I wondered. Returned home from our summer jobs, boss dropped me at the head of our long driveway, and I sauntered homeward, gazed towards my cherished set of wheels, sensed something was amiss. There, in its purest form, vengeance. What the hell? Was almost a relief to see my car next to the white wall in its altered state. Well played. Father, and perhaps mother, had extracted a bucket of payback. My pristine Oldsmobile had been sullied. Coated from top to bottom with splattered cherry bombs.
Oh my goodness.
What a sight.
Whoa.
Last of the foul fruit had most of a sunny day to help bake in its goodness. Touché!
Oh my goodness.
Entered the house. Not a word was said. Seems a certain 5-year-old had an innocent conversation with father. Kids.
Oh.
Many hours of cleaning. Oldsmobile was back to its former glory. Somehow, it wasn't the same. Something had changed. My pure Oldsmobile seemed a stranger, a large albatross that made a huge footprint in the driveway. Owner of the flooring company I worked for encouraged me to buy a work van. Even though I was still 15 and couldn't legally drive, I saw the wisdom in having a work vehicle in order to be my own boss as a subcontracting underlay installer. It was with mixed emotions that I placed an ad in the classified section of the Edmonton Journal. For sale, 1958 Oldsmobile. A few phone calls. No one came the 30 miles from the capital city to kick her tires. Flew to Vancouver to attend the highly anticipated summer ski camp at Whistler. This was saved and planned for many months before the Rocket 88 entered the scene. 2 weeks later, I returned to an empty space next to the faintly mottled white wall. Mother sold it for $700. I believed her. Rocket was off on another mission.